After the first couple of weeks of Advent, preaching in the book of Haggai, we are transitioning over to the book of Luke. Luke chapter 1. I won't be preaching the whole chapter this morning, but I want to remind you of the message from the book of Haggai. In that, the people who were rebuilding the temple, Zerubbabel and Joshua, they had very high hopes for what God was up to. And there were many, many hundreds of years of prophecy where the prophets had come in and spoken on God's behalf to the people of God. And these prophecies were, mind-blowing, incredible promises that had been given. And the Lord himself had spoken through Haggai and saying, Zerubbabel, you're the guy. You are my signet ring that I am picking up and putting on my hand. And it's sort of like the glory days, you're living in them. And the people wept for how unglorious the temple was upon its completion. They had been stirred up by the Spirit of God to do the work of God. God's with you. Do the work. His incredible plans are coming to fruition. These are the days where prophecy is being fulfilled. Join him. And the people got stirred up and they did the work. And then when the temple was in completion and the sacrifices were being made, the young people were cheering, the old people were weeping. Because it was such an unglorious thing. It did not meet their expectations. Part of the life of a believer in walking in God's prophecy, seeing God's truth coming to fruition, is oftentimes an unglorious and unexciting thing. And I said last week, if God really is moving in our lives, then we are bound to be disappointed, to be dealing with feelings of disappointment, because if God is doing far more than we could expect or think, then he's not going to do what you expect or think. And sometimes that's shocking, because we think to ourselves, oh, here's what I imagine, it's here. And that's so amazing. I can't wait to see what God does, because it's going to exceed my expectations. And exceed my expectations, yes, but perhaps a better word is to shatter my expectations. It's like, oh, God isn't even in the ballpark of what I was thinking. He's over here doing something completely different. So I want to call this reality where prophecy meets pavement. Sort of like where the rubber meets the road. You know, you learn stuff in school about whatever it might be, and then when you actually get out into the real world and you're applying these lessons, it's like, well, okay, it's not exactly what I had imagined. The theory is nice, but when the rubber meets the road, it's like, okay, it's just a lot of hard work or whatever. So in that same vein, when prophecy, I was particularly proud of that. I feel like I'm maturing as a minister. Here's what I think we absolutely must know from the gospel story of the coming of Jesus Christ, the real fulfillment of the real prophecy that Zerubbabel and Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and all of the people in the time of the rebuilding of the temple, they were only seeing a partial fulfillment of the prophecy. God works in his time. That can be disappointing. Here's where we see prophecy meeting pavement in a very full fulfillment of Scripture. Living out God's wonderful proclamation sometimes is not glamorous. And if you walk away today with anything, I hope that you will have a desire in your heart to yield to God's will, no matter what it looks like, but to say, like, yes, Lord, I want to be a part of what you're doing. no matter if it feels the way I thought it would feel or not. Because it won't feel the way you think it's going to feel. And you do that, we do that by embracing who is calling, not what he is calling us to. We must embrace who is calling. So, this nature of prophecy can seem to have perhaps a shimmer of gloriousness and furthermore gratification. These are two things that the believer enormously expects. Like, it will be like, God is working in my life. I'm glowing. I'm just glowing. I'm effervescing the glory of God. And the other thing is like, and it feels so good. My life finally has meaning and purpose. I know exactly where I fit into God's plan. But when believers actually live out the prophecies of God, the will of God, usually that shimmer disappears. And it's like, oh, you know, God's calling me to be a pastor. It's like, yeah. And at your ordination, you feel like, you know, the Spirit of God is upon me to preach, to heal, to, you know, and then the actual doing of the pastoral profession is usually just sitting with people and talking about the muck of their lives and trying to remind them, like, no, God is good and he's faithful and I don't know what he's doing either, but let's trust him. And like, it's emotionally exhausting, it's physically exhausting, and sometimes it isn't as gratifying as you would think it would be. It's where the prophecy meets the pavement. It's coming to the reality that this gloriousness and this gratification is not what we think it is when it's being carried out. So I want to tell you a story about two people who found themselves in the incredible will of God. A story so amazing your ears will tingle when you hear it. And what their experience was like. So the book of Luke, chapter 1, first I want to read the superscript of the book of Luke. It's actually 2 volumes, Luke and Acts, which I hope that in this coming year we will be able to walk through together. Luke gives us this information at the beginning. He says, "Inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the things that have been accomplished among us, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word have delivered them to us, it seemed good to me also, having followed all things closely for some time past, to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, that you may have certainty concerning the things you have been taught." And it's important to talk about this superscript. A superscript is a part of Scripture that tells us what the Scripture is trying to do. And so usually you see it like in the book of the prophets. It will start like, you know, in the 2nd year of King so-and-so, Amos, the son of so-and-so, spoke these oracles. You know, colon. And then there's the book of Amos. That superscript is there to tell you sort of the context. And here's the context. In the very beginning of Christianity, what the people of God had was the stories that the apostles told about what it was like to be in the presence of Jesus. The lessons that he taught them, the charges that he gave them. And sometimes it's like painfully funny how these apostles and disciples, what they were thinking and how things played out. And they are the people, those apostles and disciples are the ones who went out and started teaching the things of Jesus just he told them to. But then there came this persecution in which those people who knew the gospel story most completely were being killed. And there were a number of smart people in the early church who were like, hey, maybe you should write down what you've been telling us all these years. Because maybe Jesus Christ isn't going to come back before you die. I mean, I know that's unthinkable because he said, I'm coming back very soon. So run, go tell people. But maybe if we have to wait a generation or two before he comes back, we ought to write these things down. And as best we can guess, the very first gospel account was written by a guy named Mark, who is a royal screw-up. He did so much damage in the early church, so much so that Paul, who had grace for all kinds of people, was like, I don't have any grace left for that guy. He's a ne'er-do-well. But John Mark had been traveling with Peter so much that he decided, I'm going to write down like the view of what Peter has been saying in town and after town after town after town about what it was like to be with Jesus. So he wrote this book, and then it got published, and people were like, this is great, we've got the story of Jesus. And all of the other people who knew the story of Jesus were like, that's a good try, Mark, but you left a lot of stuff out. And so Matthew gave his account, and then this is the account of Luke, who traveled with Paul mostly. He was a doctor. He was not one of the apostles. He was one of the disciples. He was a scholarly man. And he knew someone named Theophilus who lived somewhere, who probably had some money, and was like, hey, while these people are still alive, I want to pay for you to go and record the interviews of those first-hand accounts. Not Mark's memory of what Peter said. Not Matthew's memory of what Jesus said. I want you to go talk to the people who actually lived through it, write it down, order it up so that I can know that I'm not following this Jesus on hearsay. So this is what Luke does. It's an incredible account. It's one of the most versions of the gospel story because it has perspectives that the other gospels leave out. And this is where he begins his story in verse 5. In the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah of the division of Abijah. And he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and statutes of the Lord. But they had no child because Elizabeth was barren, and both were advanced in years. Now Luke's giving us something about this couple that probably the casual modern observer would not know. There were many, many priests in this time of the second temple, the one that Zerubbabel built. And we're guessing, our best educated guess is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 priests. And it would be like if the adopted church had 20,000 pastors. You'd be like, that's a lot for this group of people. So how do we determine who gets to go in and do the various tasks of the rituals of the church? Because there's not that many. So what they would do is they would throw lots. There was 24 divisions of the sons of Aaron. So they were presented sort of by clan and then family, and they would cast lots to determine who God wanted to go in and do various services. One of these guys was a guy named Zechariah. He's old. Zechariah is old. He's righteous. He has lived his life well. Lived in faith and faithfulness. One of those guys who, like, we would call the pillars of the church, who's there all the time, supporting the church, opening up their home to new people and being the social fabric that keeps the church together. This was Zechariah and his wife, Elizabeth. Now, they are sort of really blessed because not only is he a priest, but he married a wife who could trace her lineage back to Aaron as well. So they were like a power couple. They were righteous. They walked blamelessly in all of the commandments and statutes of the Lord. And there were a lot of commandments and statutes you had to follow as a priest to ensure that you were always ritually clean and able to give service in the temple. But they had no child. And this tells us something else about Zechariah and Elizabeth. They had lived all of their lives together. Jews at this time got married very early, like when they're toddlers probably, they get betrothed, and then by the time they're like 11, 12 years old, they get married. And then they spend their life together, having kids till they can't have kids anymore. And the whole Jewish life sort of centers around having a home. And they had a house, but not much of a home, because Elizabeth was barren. And this was something that was understood then the same as it is understood today. That's like in God's realm. That's not something we can control. Even with all of our medical things, there are still many, many people who, for whatever reason, cannot have children. And our society is a society that does not value children as much as first century Judaism. And today, it is incredibly painful for a couple to go without being able to have kids. No matter what they tried, it never happened, and they understood, as well as we understand, that that was something that God had done. How terrible would you feel if the Bible itself said about you, righteous, faithful, but God could not be bothered to give them children? How many years had they in that really hard and difficult place of wanting something very, very desperately, and God not giving it to them? Well, our best guess is that they probably had been married somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 years at the point where we meet them in Luke's narrative. Note, lots and lots of prayers, lots of family members and extended family members praying for them, asking Lord, interceding for them on their behalf. And for 50 or 60 years, God did not answer. He was okay with them having a gaping hole in their life and in their heart. In verse 8, Luke says, "Now, while he was serving as priest before God, when his division was on duty, according to the custom of the priesthood, he was chosen by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and burn incense." This was the highest honor that could be given to a priest without being the high priest who goes into the Holy of Holies. This is one step away from the curtain that separates the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple. And they would be there between the candlestick and the showbread before the altar of God. And they would put incense on top of burning hot coals so that the temple itself would be filled with this smoke from the incense. And that incense was to represent all of the prayers of God's people that were offered before him, to give a visual and physical sort of demonstration of a spiritual reality. It is said that because of how many priests were there at that time, if you got selected for this duty, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And this was at the very end of old Zechariah's life. He's there burning incense before God. And, verse 10, the whole multitude of the people were praying outside at the hour of incense. So you can imagine all of the faithful people of Israel gathered on the outside of the temple to offer their prayers while one representative goes in to burn the incense before God, that their prayers might be sort of physically in the temple, representing all of the prayers of the people at the time. In verse 11, "And there appeared to him an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. This is not a normal thing. This does not normally happen. Here is an old priest who has had this gaping wound in his heart for years and years and years and years, not only for himself, but on behalf of his wife. He felt awful on behalf of his wife because there was something that she needed that he could not give to her. And all of a sudden, as he's burning incense, boom, this angel appears. Not any angel, the angel. There appeared to him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And Zechariah was troubled when he saw him, and fear fell upon him. Why would that be? Well, I just sort of imagine it myself. I imagine me doing my normal pastoral duties, except I'm an old man who's been faithful for many, 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 many years. And there are many of my prayers that have gone unanswered. It has not kept me from being faithful. There I am praying, and boom, this glorious angel is standing right there, staring at me. Yeah, that would be freaky. Like, what's different about this time? Am I about to die? You know, is this the angel who's going to be like, it's time to go? Oh, my goodness. Is it that I've done something wrong and here I am in my prayers and God has sent the avenging angel to cut me down like he sent the angel to cut down Balaam on his way to curse the people? Here's this angel standing there staring at me. I'm staring at the angel. There's this incredible silence between us and fear starts bubbling up. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard. And your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John." I cannot imagine that Zechariah is still praying this prayer. It's been 50 or 60 years. They're an old couple. They are looking forward to dying. It's like, that's the last thing to do on the checklist of my life. I've done it all. I'm at the very end. I'm just waiting for the Lord to take me home. And this angel says, don't be afraid. God has heard your prayer. The prayer that you've been praying for your wife Elizabeth. And she's going to bear you a son. The prayer I prayed over the last, I quit praying about that 20 years ago. I'm sure that Zechariah had come to the place where he did not think he had come to some level of acceptance that he and his wife were not going to have children. And he felt bad for his wife. He prayed for her. But I'm sort of convinced inside myself that Zechariah had long since stopped praying about having a son. I imagine he's like 70, maybe 80 years old. He's shuffling around in his walker, He's not thinking like, man, there's still time, Lord. There's still time. We could still squeeze in a baby before I die. That I think it's important to note, one, that all of our prayers remain before the Lord. That God does not, you don't have to keep on praying and keep on praying and keep on praying in order for the Lord to answer. When you pray, it remains before the Lord. How many tens of thousands of prayers had stacked up on this one issue, remaining there before the Lord, but it wasn't time yet. And this, I think, is one of the most disappointing things about living in the plans and purposes of God. Not only is it not as glamorous as we think it would have been, but it seems to never be when we want it. It's God wants it. And here's Zechariah with his old frail bones, completing one of the items on his bucket list. Serve incense, burn incense before the Lord. Have this incredible honor. Be ready to die. And all of a sudden this angel shows up and says, don't be afraid. Your prayer has been heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. And you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth, for he will be great before the Lord. And he must not drink wine or strong drink, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit even from his mother's womb. And he will turn many of the children of Israel to the Lord their God, and he will go before the power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready for the Lord a people prepared. Zechariah knows what this angel is talking about. He's quoting from the prophecies of the Old Testament. And everybody knew that before the Messiah came, God would send a voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the paths of the Lord. That it would be, in fact, the very spirit of Elijah that would come, and Zechariah, who has gone so long without being fulfilled, is here in this place being told by the angel Gabriel, this is going to happen and it's going to be so incredible. He's going to be the Elijah character. He's going to be filled with the Holy Spirit in such a way as has never happened before in all of the history of the people of Israel. There have been people who have been anointed by the Holy Spirit for a particular event in their life or for a particular season of their life. But this baby is going to have the Holy Spirit in him and on him, even inside his mother's womb. While he's being knitted together, the Lord's doing a new thing. He's doing a crazy thing, and you won't believe it. He is going to turn the hearts of the people back to the Lord. They're going to start caring about their families again. They're going to start doing the things that are necessary to even apprehend what God is doing. What is Zechariah's response? Well, in verse 18, Zechariah said to the angel, "How shall I know this? Because I'm an old man, and my wife, she's advanced in years." What's Zechariah saying here? Not likely. Not likely. The angel comes to him, "You've been faithful for a long life." I think it's safe to say that Zechariah is a bit jaded. I've done the prophecy thing before. I don't need any more prophecies. Thank you very much. I've been heartbroken enough by the things that have been promised, by my own faithfulness. I haven't given up, but don't ask me to hope more. I don't think this is going to happen. I tell you what, how about you do some sort of a miracle or a sign right here so that I'll believe you? That's a pretty incredible response from a pretty jaded person. So, the angel gives him his answer. Verse 19. The angel answered him, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. I was sent to speak to you, to bring you this good news." This isn't bad news, Zechariah. I'm not here to give you bad news. I was sent by God himself to bring you good news. And behold, that's like, look here. Look here. You will be silent and unable to speak until the day that these things have taken place, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their time. You see, God's prophecy doesn't need our participation or our belief. It's God's prophecy saying this is going to happen. And Zechariah, bless him, bless him. I mean, I wish more people were like him. He's jaded, yeah, but he hasn't given up. So he has a little bit of disbelief that he's going to have to overcome. So God does the very thing that he asks for. You want a sign? How about this? You're not going to be able to talk. This will be fulfilled. It's good news. You are a part of this. Sort of whether you like it or not. Verse 21. And the people were waiting for Zechariah. They were wondering at his delay in the temple. You see, it was considered very poor form when you had been given this very high and holy task to just take your time. You got in. This is at the most holy place a person can be without being in the Holy of Holies. The most coveted job. You don't go in there and take your time. You get in, you do your business, you get out. Because there are all kinds of stories of people who did not have their heart in the right place while they were serving God, and God strikes them dead. Strikes them with leprosy or something like that. So just go in, do your business, and get out. So the people are wondering, doesn't usually take this long. What's taking Zechariah so long? What's he doing in there? And verse 22, when he came out, he was unable to speak to them. And they realized that he had seen a vision in the temple. Now, this incredible work of God has happened in his life, and he can't tell a soul. Because he didn't believe and he didn't want to take part, and God gave him the incredible gift of using him anyway. Probably because of all of the faithfulness that had been stacked up before him in his life. God's not going to let this one sort of jaded response from keeping him from being a part of it. So he comes out and he's making signs to them, and he's mute. He went in there speaking, he's coming out going, and people are like, I think something happened in there. I think maybe he saw a vision in the temple. So he keeps making signs to them, but he can't speak. He's mute. And when his time of service was ended, he went to his home. So when he did those tasks, he went back home. After these days, his wife Elizabeth conceived, and for 5 months she kept herself hidden, saying, Thus the Lord has done for me in the days when he looked on me to take away my reproach among people. Elizabeth actually does get pregnant, even though these two are way too old to be having kids. And her response is to actually keep the whole thing secret for now. She doesn't need to go around telling people about it. Why? Because the Lord's done something incredible, something marvelous. The Lord has taken away my reproach among all of the people. You know, this is one of the things about God's timing. Her reproach is being taken away just at the very end of her life. And I think this is sort of like the opposite of a jaded response. Just sort of takes her time to just cherish what God is doing. And I think that's the right thing. Now we're going to have a story of Mary and her response. And I want you to notice the difference between what happens with Zechariah and what happens with Mary. Verse 26, in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel, same angel, was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. And he, this angel, came to her and said, Greetings, O favored one, the Lord is with you. And I don't know how you would feel hanging out at home, and all of a sudden Gabriel shows up in your bedroom or living room when no one else is around, I guess, and says, Greetings, O favored one. The Lord is with you. I just want to remind you, in the book of Haggai, what was the encouragement that Haggai gave to the people of God in order to stir them up to do the work of God. He said, don't be afraid. God is with you. Do the work. And here the angel shows up and says, Greetings, the Lord is with you. But troubled at the saying and tried to discern what sort of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son. You shall call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. So, this angel shows up to Mary, tells her, don't be afraid. Actually, God likes you. I'm not here because God doesn't like you. I'm here because God likes you. God has favor for you. So don't be afraid. And here's what's going to happen. And then this incredible promise. Now, who is Mary? She's a nobody. Where is Nazareth? It's a nowhere town. It's a place. Amazing things don't happen in Nazareth. In fact, that was one of the criticisms that the Pharisees brought to Jesus later in his ministry. Where are you from? Nazareth. No prophets come out of Nazareth. That's not a place that's mentioned in the Bible. It's not mentioned in our prophecies. The Lord can do whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it. And it is an incredible thing to be part of what God is doing. People of God, don't be afraid. For the Lord our God is with us. So Mary said to the angel, how will this be since I am a virgin? You notice that her response is remarkably similar to Zechariah's. He says, that's impossible, we're too old. And Mary says, that's impossible, I'm not married. I don't have a man in my life who can do this for me. So it must have been mostly the fact that she did not demand a sign, and there must be a significant difference in the tone of voice that Mary uses than that Zechariah uses. How is this possible? The angel answered her, the Holy Spirit will come upon you. The power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God. And behold, your relative Elizabeth, in her old age, has also conceived a son. And this is the 6th month with her who was called barren. For nothing will be impossible with God. Mary actually gets a sign given to her, though she asked for none. She didn't know that Elizabeth was expecting. Elizabeth had hidden herself. The angel says, go check on Elizabeth, your old relative. You'll find her shuffling around in her walker, pregnant. God is going to do a work in Mary that has never been done before. There's no blueprint for this. There's no story in the Old Testament about someone having God's baby. But it's going to. Verse 38. Mary said, behold, I am the servant or the bondservant or the slave of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. And the angel departed from her. When God announces to Zechariah, I'm going to do an incredible thing in you, for you, through you. Zechariah's response is okay. I doubt it. Mary's response is, okay. I'm God's. He can do whatever he wants with me. And this, I think, is the key to being at the right place in our prayers and in our faith in the Advent season. Lord, I know you have incredible plans. And whatever you want, yes. This is sort of maybe the opposite of what would be called the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel says, God, I'm imagining something wonderful for myself, and I say, yes, you can do that wonderful thing for me. I agree that you should do what I am imagining for myself. I will apprehend it by faith. I will believe it into existence. And Mary's response here is sort of like the polar opposite, the negative of that. And it is, God, whatever you are thinking for me, my answer is yes. Because I'm your bondservant. I'm your slave. I'm the creation. You're the creator. My job is to say, yes, Lord, yes. I want it to be to me according to your word. You speak, I do. You say go, I go. However impossible it seems, and this seems impossible. This has never before happened in the history of mankind, that a woman would have God's child. But here, it is given to Mary, and she says, yes. Church, what will we choose? This is actually kind of a disastrous thing for Mary. One, she's not married yet, and she's going to get pregnant. And what are people going to say when she's like, no, I haven't done anything wrong. This is God's baby. Do you think they're going to be like, oh, okay, great? No, probably not. She's going to be, all kinds of incredibly awful things are going to be said about her because she didn't say no to God. But she doesn't care about her reputation. She cares about the will of God. She is not like, you know what? God, let's shelve your plans for a second. I've got one better. How about I'll marry a really, really rich guy. I'll have his kids, and you'll just bless me and them. She says, okay, I will do what you want. And God is remarkably okay with using the weakest, the lowest, the dumbest, the youngest people in society. These are not important people. These are very unimportant people. But God says, I'm going to use you. Why? Because He likes to. He wants to. We just say yes. What keeps us from saying yes? Well, sometimes, if we have been Christians for a while, we get Zechariah's case of jadedness. I've prayed about that a long time. God, that train left the station about 20 years ago. Yes, I was praying about that, but I'm okay with it now. And so sometimes it's just, we do the Zechariah thing instead of the Mary thing because we're too tired. We're too burnt out. We know our own failings too well. Lord, I don't think that plan's going to work. I will mess this up. Sometimes it's because we just want something better. The Lord's like, I'm going to use you in an incredibly powerful way, slumming it up with the least of these. How about we go with those people over there? I want something better. I want my reputation to be benefited. I was thinking of the story of Gideon and how Gideon started out saying Lord, I'm a nobody. How could you use me? I'm the least. I'm not from a powerful clan or tribe. And God was like, shut up and do what I tell you. And once he started having victories and seeing that God was a part, his slogan changed from a sword for the Lord. He told his people to say, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Somehow we want our name to be attached to God's. That somehow as His star is rising, we too will be exalted. But that's not the way that God works. He wants all of the glory, and He doesn't want to, His point is not, hey, we will be glorified. And so we will tend towards Zechariah's response if we want something better for me. We can't be too tired. We can't be wanting something bigger or better for ourselves. And finally, I think that especially in our day and age, we care an awful lot about whether or not being incredible. Okay, but how fun is this going to be? Zechariah, I know you're 82. You're going to have a baby. Oh no! You're going to have a baby. I'm going to be like 99 by the time this kid moves out. You know how many diapers? I can't even bend over anymore, Lord. How am I going to change these diapers? It's like, sometimes we get hung up on whether or not it will be fun, rather than what the Lord promises, that it will be good. That it will be good. Our promise from God is that His work is good. That the news that He is spreading is good news. That what He is doing is for us. Not in the way that we wanted, but when prophecy meets the pavement, it's how God wants. And it's also in His time. And this is a remarkable story where God's plan is sort of too late for Zechariah and is too early for Mary. It's like, God, we're too old for this. Mary's like, I don't even have a husband yet. That doesn't matter to God. He does things in His time. And I want to close with this reminder. Adopted Church, the work that God is doing in your life is His work. It's His. He will do it. And I promise you, I can say something with total confidence. The Lord is with you. So we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to wonder, like, how is this going to turn out? And just do the Mary thing and say, great. The answer is yes. Yes. I will do whatever you want me to, Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. And as we prepare our hearts for Christmas, as we look for the coming of the Lord, as these people in Luke chapter 1, for the first coming, and we are looking for the second coming, I want to ask each and every one of us to ask the Lord, God, what are you doing in my life? How can I say yes? How can I say yes to you? Because I know that you are with me. Let us cherish who is calling us rather than what He is calling us to. Because whatever the thing is, it's almost always going to be less glorious than we had hoped. We will be, not glowing as brightly and wonderfully as we had hoped or in the way that we had hoped. Probably won't make other people think very highly of us. But our nearness to the Lord will be satisfying. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we want what you want. And sometimes we make the mistake of thinking about the prophecies that you have promised will be somehow more glorious or in our own sense of the word than what you had planned. It almost always seems to be not when we want or need, but when you desire. And God, is so easy as your child to become jaded to the promises and proclamations of various movements and things and people. Lord, would you speak to us? Will you give us the promise of your presence? Would you help us to grab a hold of that? That this Christmas season, we might be able to genuinely have you near to us. God, help us to say yes to those things that you are calling us to. Help us, Lord God, to be your people. for us or to us, or help us to be a witness. Faithfulness. Cause us, Lord God, to be the light that you have sent into the world. We pray this in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen.